and good day. Your eager anticipation is joyfully received. The quality of your personal existence is determined by the way that you use your mind. Not just the logical areas of the mind and brain, but the mental pictures that you associate with the various phenomena in your life and your affairs. These mental pictures, these imaginings, are the fill-in between your separate units of thought and the gaps of logic in your life. These mental images that you form in your mind using your visual imagination powerfully impact the world around you in unforeseen ways. Mental images with a very strong emotional charge behind them are propelled out of the energy that composes your identity complex, and they travel about in the psychic atmosphere. Receptive individuals may pick up these thoughts and interpret them in their own ways, just as you do on a subliminal level of consciousness all the time. Hence the statement that I frequently make that you know more about your world than you believe you do, and more about each other than you believe you do. The intuition and your ability to empath the condition of others should not be such a strange and unfamiliar experience to you, to those on the path, nor to anyone. But these days in your modern world, you are estranged from your natural instinct, that peculiar sensation and feeling that tells you if somebody may mean you harm or wish you well, or some neutral but vital disposition. The imagination is like a laser beam. It is like a magnifying lens. Using the powers of your imagination, you can track the events of your lives and even influence those events. But I am here to tell you that after many, many, many centuries of human observation, that frequently you are reacting more to the imaginary events in your lives and your emotional interpretation and attributions than to the concrete objective realities around you. And so many times your success is bound up in dysfunctional emotional processes that prevent you from reaching the kingly or queenly heights of your personal success. Your life can be a fascinating adventure. It can be stark and intense royal colors, or it can be a life of pastels. The choice is really yours. The ability to discipline the imagination so that you can picture the outcomes that you wish to have in your affairs is a well worth it event. For it would allow you to have attributes and qualities and personal experiences in your life that otherwise you simply would not be cued into. Most of you do not have a clue. Or sometimes you sporadically have a clue. But the correctly disciplined imagination will allow you to have a basic holistic field of sensation and cognition regarding all of your life circumstances, so that you no longer see your life in a piecemeal fashion as separated elements and individuals and such things, but rather as a whole. Hence, in the ancient doctrines, and many of my friends who are speakers from the dimension from which I come, speak of achieving holiness or becoming a holy person. In the past, it was tradition to become a holy man, or if you were a female, more popular to be a saint, but you can be both saintly and holy and be the same person. A holy person is an individual that has the soul, body, mind complex in harmony. This is a growth path of development that only you can decide to take. Nobody can hold a gun to your head and make you do this. I frequently, however, also make a very important comment, and that is, you have eternity to evolve, but why wait? Why wait to live in a richer, more entertaining, more fulfilling reality? Hence, developing the powers of your imagination to an art form and also to a science is invaluable, for it would allow you to access latent potentials and abilities that otherwise would simply sleep for a lifetime. The richness and the depth, the emotional fulfillment and the pragmatic objective successes that could be yours then would be missed in that lifetime. For you have lived before, like it or not, believe it or not, whether or not you can conceptualize it, you, my friend, have lived many times before, and you will live many other existences that you cannot conceive from your conscious point of view. The imagination, then, can be a vehicle by which you can unify the different fields of your consciousness into a new holistic, functional operation. From a discordant, noisy orchestra to a well-synchronized orchestra, your personality can become a dynamic representation and actualization of all of your heretofore unacknowledged potentials. With your imagination, you can conceive events that you dare not attempt to try to actualize in your life safely, because you can mentally figure out the results of your behaviors without having to possibly suffer losses in your life. I have spoken about the power of the imagination and mentioned, and rather correctly so, many a time, that the imagination is the most powerful force that you as living human incarnates possess. In the human spectrum, the imagination is what makes your social world run. It is what turns the wheel in your existence. It is what adds depth and meaningful fulfillment to your human affairs, singularly and in partnership. The ability to project your personality can be greatly enhanced by the power of the correctly applied imagination. The imagination allows you to synthesize the entire spectrum of sensory data and access the intuitive memory banks within your memory systems in a new way. A unification then between the intellect, with its cutting, dissecting, digesting capabilities, and the intuition with its unifying functions can take place through the vehicle of the correctly trained imagination. A man in the early 1900s conceived of a large building in San Diego. He was widely traveled and from a different country. His intuition told him to add steel components to his cement so that he could build a structure that would endure tremors and also last longer. His imagination, combined with logic, allowed him to build a structure that still stands not too far from almost a century later. In the same way, using your imaginations, you can build a life that is stable and can endure the earthquakes, the winds, the forces, the turns of fate, the turnabouts, the unexpected 180-degree pivots in your life. Your life can be stabilized then. Stabilized in a loose structure that allows you to be creative but still mutually supports you on your path. I do not mean to sound like a high and mighty preacher, out to work your emotions and to get your money out of your pocket. I am not into saving your soul, for the only thing your soul needs to be saved from is you and your ignorance. Nevertheless, truth, though it sometimes hurts, is a great activator to the imagination. A humble ego means that you will be willing and receptive to absorb new truth and new data. The mental images, the visual pictures that you imprint on your mind in your states of transient emotion that you move in and out of throughout your physical day become your future. It is only a period of time before those things that you have conceptualized and added visual components to and the appropriate emotion become physical events, because you are then conditioning your inner computer system. Your subconscious feeds back to you those things that you have stuffed into it. So sometimes, rather than hearing from your intuition, you are hearing from your programming. The intuition always seeks to free. Programming always seeks to confine, to control, to dominate, to manipulate, to apply force. The intuition uplifts and accelerates. Programming slows down and makes things concrete, and it entraps energy. A program is essentially a trap, a pattern of ritualistic internal comprehensions that keep you spinning your wheels for a lifetime, never reaching the heights of your fulfillment. The imagination then is a very powerful thing. It can allow you to quit smoking, or give up drinking, or give up sexually compulsive obsessive behavior, or to give up your addiction to therapists and to yogis. It can allow you to get that Mercedes Benz. It can allow you to visualize the outcome of plastic surgery. It can allow you to see $1 million in the bank only a few years later to manifest that very money. The imagination creates the results in your physical life. It is intimately tied up with your self-concept. Your self-concept is that identification pattern that says you are you, and you are not somebody else. You are of a particular race, or religious orientation, or political affiliation, or school of psychology. That is your identification pattern. Or, worst of all, I am a man or a woman. I am gay or I am straight. Every inch down the line, at every turn, you are so conditioned you cannot see the forest through the trees of your own conditioning patterns. The imagination can allow you to overcome such limitations. The imagination can allow a group of men with diagrams and meager resources to build a dam to trap water in the desert, that then builds a lake that feeds the wildlife there and makes the desert turn green. The imagination is a fertile soil that allows you to change a reality from one given perceived condition into another condition, even step by step. The imagination allows you then to see the vision of what your life could be, can be, and should be. What are you doing living a life that is not your life? It is not your life if you are not satisfied and happy and smiling. If you are frustrated with bills that eternally seem to plague you, frustrated with tax collectors, frustrated with your president in your government, frustrated with your psychiatrist, frustrated with somebody that will not turn your loving affection, then you are not correctly utilizing the power of the divine imagination, for you are infant gods. You have to learn to crawl, and then walk, and then run. You must go through all the stages of development. Why? A gap in your development will always surely mean that your manifestations will be mucked up. This is not Satan or the devil trying to ruin God's work. Rather, it is your own lack of understanding and comprehension that produces these demonic results in your lives. The imagination, like a focusing lens, can be turned inwardly and allow you to observe your blind spots, and then it can zap those blind spots with light and dissolve those blind spots so that the trapped energy behind them and the fear that erected them can be removed, and you can become a fearless being in the flesh. The average human incarnate mortal exists in a debased condition between fear and desire. An unfortunate situation, but one, nevertheless, that is so common, it should be obvious. You live within the rules, and you will only get so far as the rules allow you to. Because the purpose of rules is to confine and define and limit options. Your creativity is the result of the correct use of the imagination. The more powerful your imagination, the farther that you can go, and the more grandiose the dreams that you can realize. And do not deny yourself the reality that anything you can conjure within the imagination can become a glittering literal fact in the objective world, for your entire social environment with its buildings and its laws and its government and its monetary systems worldwide is the result of the human imagination. Hence, there is not one area in your life that is not impacted by the imagination. But there are many areas of your lives that are negatively impacted by the incorrect use of the imagination. You are not taught how to think in school or by your parents correctly. You are taught how to think cultural centrifugally through your identity pattern. You have to look beyond your skin color and your physical age and your level of physical health if you want to be a great and powerful actualized human incarnate in your dimension. And that means you have to be willing to violate the rules and play with them. You can see how limited your friends and family and lovers and children are, how conditioned and small their mindset must be if you just test the rules and step over the line just a little bit. You go to one of your bank and lending institutions, there are many qualifications that you have to clear to get the loan. If you violate any of these, they will not take a chance on you. They do not know how special you are. They only have their primitive little mathematical computeral sketches and statistics. Well, you can see how well they have been working in your 1990s now, can't you? Your life and the life of your culture and the level of success of all of your friends is determined by the way they use their mind. Or, in reality, do not use their mind, but think in rote, pre-programmed, trained perceptions. They have forgotten how to be children and how to play, how to have fun doing what they innately could do greatly if they could just give up this egotistical affection to the small self, the lower ego, the negative ego. The imagination can allow you to step beyond these things into a dimension of wealth and power beyond your current ability to conceive, only because you are not willing to stretch the concepts in your mind. You are afraid if you step outside of the boundary zones of social reality, you will fall through the cracks and live on the streets. You do not have to live in chronic fear that you will be out on the streets if you are fired and 3 paycheck periods pass, like the average American. You do not have to be average. You are special. You are God in the flesh. And you, I'm talking to you right now, right here, in the momentum of your prestigious moment. Lock into what I am saying. You can have it all. But if you are obsessing with individuals not worthy of your attention, with jobs not worthy of your attention, just to pay the bills, you are going about it, frankly, the wrong way. You have to be willing to open your mind and your heart for a sufficient period of time that the old patterns of internal, mental, emotional, psychological programs and behavior can fall apart and die a glorious death. And it indeed is a sight to see. An individual going from psychologically and spiritually dysfunctional to flying in brilliant color. Successful in everything they attempt. You can be that person. You are that person. You must acknowledge that these potentials exist within you. You have to be willing to look different and act different. You have to be willing to let go of your insecurities and fear that you will wind up on the streets. You may for a period of time. How many of my psychic celebrity clients existed on the streets for a while till they found a job at the local diner in Hollywood? Excuse me, let's talk about a real life in your dimension. Yes, you will have to make some sacrifices here and there. But you don't need an excuse to pursue your dreams, to have the relationship, the admiration, the spiritual wisdom, the physical longevity, and the physical beauty that is rightfully yours if you are willing to be you and to be different. Who are you anyway? Are you what your parents taught you? Are you what you learned at Sunday school? Who are you? Spiritually, you escape definition. It is not always so much who you are, but who you are not. One thing is for sure, my earthbound friends, you are not any of the primitive mental models that your parents, lovers, teachers, friends, and priests and psychiatrists have taught you. You are not organic matter. The physical body, too, is fashioned out of organic matter, but it is not. Organic matter has a mean lifespan. It exists for a certain period of time. The soul from which you come, however, not being composed of organic matter, does not have to follow the rules of organic matter. And it does not. I most certainly do not. Neither should you. You do not have to die, not having fulfilled your physical potentials in your physical lifetime. Do not listen to those that will tell you you could not achieve those desires that you have. True, you may need to modify some of those desires, but that does not mean you cannot have them. You have to be willing to hold on to your dream long enough for it to manifest, but not so obsessively that you get in the way of the lower ego and demolish your plans consistently, preventing their manifestation gloriously in physical reality. You can have it all. Whether you want to be a jet-set model and you are a housewife who is an alcoholic and overweight. Are you an unemployed Chicano from East LA? Or a burned out hippie headed toward 50 in Oregon? It does not matter who you are. These are all just whimsical definitions, and if you believe in them, you have a problem. You have a problem because if you believe in these definitions, if they are your only point of reference, you will misinterpret the gifts of the Spirit as applied to your own affairs and in your physical existence. You are not a menopausal old woman or a menopausal human male. You never pass your prime unless you believe you should. You can exist perpetually in your prime in your physical existence. You can look fine, and you can feel fine, and you can live in perpetual euphoria and joy. That is the message. The technology to achieve that message, the vision that I have painted for you, all of you, is to use the power of your imagination. You think about your boss bawling you out at work, and you have an anxiety attack, and it causes your stomach to overproduce gastric juices, and it begins to work on itself, and you develop an ulcer. Before you know it, your insurance, if you are fortunate to possess such things, is having to pay out large sums of money to pay for your medication. And in paying for your medication, you find it has little or no effect because you are looking for the answers in the wrong place. You are putting the power to your success in somebody else's hands. You are misusing your mental processes. The value system of your culture is dysfunctional. If it were not, your culture and the people that compose it would not be in the condition they are today. The proof is everywhere, and it is obvious. And I make no bones about stating reality. Rather, I am not suggesting you do not consult your physicians. But what I am suggesting is that you begin to work on your emotional body through the correct use of the imagination. I gave a technique on audio tape as my pool was fast asleep and dreaming of something else entirely in his pool, floating in the sun, getting a sunburn. How delicious. You visualize your boss and you dissolve their image over and over and turn it upside down and make them make funny faces. You may even wish to make them fart in public or do some equally humiliating thing. What I am saying is not that you should not have respect for those in positions of power, but that in doing so, having that respect, you should not take the game seriously. If you do, you will most surely never meet your potentials. Life is a game. How long will it take for you to learn that lesson? Hopefully not too long. That is the purpose of these communications. You can be a self-actualized and self-fulfilled individual. Whether you want to be a movie star or a good auto mechanic, it does not matter. You want to open a car wash in Laguna Beach, it does not matter. You want to open an Italian deli in Washington, D.C., it does not matter. You want to move from the Bronx to Beverly Hills, it does not matter. Whatever you want to do, what I am saying to you is go for it. Are you afraid to make a mistake and suffer a little bit of pain? At least if you died trying, you would have died better off than never trying at all. Better to lose all of those things that you value than have never self-actualized and realized your own innate inner strengths that are always there. Religion at one time served a vital context and purpose for the development of the human species. Today, all of these religions are fighting against each other, trying to win your finances. They are doing little for your soul. Only you can assist your soul. An outside source of any kind cannot do it for you unless you are very fortunate to run into the likes of me. I suggest a short break, and we will return on the appropriate use of the imagination and how it impacts your affairs and your physical existence. As I have stated many a time through my psychic's vocal apparatus, which we are getting pretty damn good at manipulating. You are larger than the facts that compose your life. It is, in fact, the fact as a process that the facts in your life are only real because you are identifying with them. They're real in that because they are blown up in your awareness, you have become hypnotically fixated, entranced by them, emotionally absorbed into a particular facts system. There are an equally abundant, if not infinitely abundant, grouping of facts at any given time in your physical experience. If you obsessively, compulsively dwell upon one particular version of the past, or one particular version of the present, or one particular version of the future, you limit your potentials by becoming hypnotically self-absorbed in this particular line of information flow, shutting off all other sensory inputs and conduits that could give you other information that you can use to elevate yourself above, beyond, and out of your current hot water, your current physical condition. You create your physical existence by the use of your imagination. That is, by the use of the way you think and image the events and affairs in your life, and then through the emotional attributions and significances that you project upon these images that are thrust out from your subconscious mechanisms, the subconscious processes of your mind. But using the power of the imagination, you can penetrate beyond the veil of illusion, the facts system that is governing your affairs. The facts are no more pertinent than any other grouping of facts you could be tuned into were you to hypnotically wake up from the sleeping and somnambulistic trance that you are so focused into. You are focused into a very narrow spectrum of information flow. You are not cosmically conscious. You are vaguely even self-aware. In fact, you are self-aware, self-hypnotized by a particular lineage of data streams in your consciousness. Emotionally addicted to this flow of information in your consciousness, you give it validity above all other facts. Contradictory information that would at first be painful to realize, but that could easily lift you out of the veil of illusory information that composes the elements of your life and affairs, is kept out of the realms of immediate consciousness as dull, weak, and unfavorably attainable potentials that somehow seem beyond you. In your mind, visualize a ring around your head, a little lower than the usual halo, right about the level of the physical eyes. Visualize it being very tight and squeezing your brain. In a sense, this is your life today. Now, in your mind, with all of your willpower, take your mental arms and push that little halo out a little, say a couple of inches from the skin. That is how big your awareness can be tomorrow. Rather than being only 20% aware of the reality that surrounds you and composes you, or only viewing reality through a particular ego identification pattern, you can set your consciousness free to soar among the stars of the imagination and become a legend in your own mind. And by doing so, this can be outpictured and you can become a legend in the waking world of those around you. You can become a sensation, a phenomena. You can become a moving force in your own life and your own affairs. This little exercise can be taken further. You can take this little halo at the level of the eyes that goes around the head that was squeezing the brain, the facts in your life, and you can push them even farther away and create a mental space for new ideas to surface in your mind, and new arrangements of conceptual patterns can liberate you from fixated ways of viewing things in reality. Is not reality the result of your hypnotically entrained point of view? Most of my human mortal friends live life in an inebriated condition. A condition of trance. Not the fun sort of thing that produces joy and happiness at every turn of life circumstances, but you live in an inversely proportionate convection current of vacuum psychologically, and that little halo around the eyes that was squeezing the brain becomes tighter and tighter as you get older, leading to midlife crises. Or a midlife crisis every decade. You can pass through the fear syndromes of your crises and graduate beyond those crises if you are willing to emotionally confront the fear, let it process and move through your system and let it go. What you resist becomes empowered. If you resist it long enough, it will become more powerful than your positive aspirations, and it will win the battle. Then you will find yourself in a perpetual situation of being a victim of circumstances that seem beyond your control, but this is only because you are creating that evidence. You are giving it value. You are thinking incorrectly. You are not thinking in an enlightened manner. Your point of view creates your experience. It will determine what potentials you are willing to tap into in your life. Your point of view is constructed by your imagination, and you imagine so many scenarios and streams of information in your life. You surround the I, the identity, with so many mirror images that you cannot see beyond them, and you become trapped psychologically in a cycle of perception, of emotional experience. An illusion, a wall surrounds the I, and the I is not free. You are entranced in a fixated condition of consciousness. You are sleepwalking. Many of you are little more than zombies. You wake up. You go to work. You go home. You have the same sexual patterns, romantic patterns, fulfillment patterns that you had 20 years ago. Unless you have been fortunate to have successfully passed through a midlife crisis every decade or so to break the cycle. Conflict is not always a negative thing. There is spiritually beneficial conflict. Pain is not to be feared. It is a teacher. If it is not resistance, it will resist it. It will pass out of your experience. The correctly utilized imagination is where you take something that seems to be dominating you in your mind, in your personality, financially, in the objective world, and in your mind you dissolve it. And you repeatedly dissolve it. You wash it away. Over and over, and understand it is a virtual reality. It is more your mental programs, your neurological connections, your conditioned thinking that is perpetuating and reinforcing and feeding that circumstance that seems so real in your life. This is the conscious use of the imagination to forge and create openings in your consciousness so that alternative perceptual patterns can be awakened within your mind and personality and help rewire you emotionally. When the emotional vehicle in the physical body or the auric body becomes addicted to a certain flow or pattern of images, it creates a cycle of life experience. Now, all human creatures and all creatures to some extent are addictive. Your scientists frequently speak about addictive personalities. These are only the obvious extreme examples. All of you, to some extent, however, share these same characteristics, though perhaps in a more cleverly hidden sense. Some of you are addicted to social approval, and hence you will not reach for the stars in your personal success unless you can overcome the need for approval from others. What you need most of all is self-love and self-approval. This correlates nicely with the concept of self-esteem. Your self-concept is the pivot point in your psychological universe. You are always at the center of your universe, through which you view and interpret your life circumstances. The mental patterns that build up that self-image are the little programs that compose that self-concept become the focusing lens through which you interpret your life events. It is that simple. Many of you become addicted, hypnotized in your teenage years and in your early youth to certain patterns of perception that you learn from your physical parents. You modify these slightly, just enough and cleverly, and hide these functions cleverly enough that you can function at a job without appearing too out of place. I am not here to be preachy to you, only to reveal some pertinent facts that compose your life. Self-acknowledging these patterns in your personality and learning to spot these addictive potentials in your existence is the first step toward liberation from self-enslavement, from being a sloppy, incompetent thinker to a functionally efficient, competent, and fulfilled spiritual being in the flesh. Your thoughts and your emotions affect the way the cells and the chromosomes function. Your thoughts mediate the functioning of the endocrine system. The hormonal mix within the endocrine system affects the condition of your physical skin, its luster, its texture, and the size of your pores. Sublimated anxiety responses affect stomach function and lead to development of many chronic diseases, and the emotional connection is only just now being realized by your metaphysicians. The emotional body is a very powerful event, a phenomenal, functional process in your existence. What it bonds to, you are hypnotized by. The condition commonly known as being in love is a hypnotic condition. When you are in love and it seems to be being returned, you are high walking on the clouds. You can then give up smoking effortlessly because your brain is flooded with the neurochemicals that you are genetically designed to produce when you are in the in-love condition. Why can't you be in love every day with reality and with yourself? Not in a negative narcissistic fashion, but in a holistic narcissistic fashion. What is wrong with loving you? But loving you does not mean loving one version of you. It means loving all of the versions of you, for the I is not any of its identifications. The I existed before the flesh form that you occupy, and the I will continue to exist long after the physical product is disposed of. You are eternal beings. You are infant gods. Some of you are more mature than others, at different stages of psychological maturity and evolution. But no matter where you stand on the hierarchy, you can always improve yourself by being willing to take responsibility for your condition, being willing to acknowledge those things in your life that you have blinders to. By acknowledging and identifying the weaknesses in your own self-perception, you can modify these mental programs so that you begin to see clearly. There are many pragmatic techniques that exist in your world for those on a path of self-improvement. But beware and be careful of any group that tries to isolate you from the world in some way, like a controlling, domineering, suppressive male or female in your life. Spirituality is not jealous. It is not possessive, and it does not believe in ownership. That is a human concept. The spirit is sufficiently powerful. It can play and pretend that any reality it wants to be real is real, and you will believe it. You are the functional element of your psychogenic organism that makes most of these decisions, and these decisions are force-fed and deep into your subconscious recesses of personality and spirit. These suggestions eventually seem to become facts. All of the facts in your life are the result of mental programs that you consider to have validity and reality, but that in fact are no more real than any other grouping of facts could be. Today, you may not have $1 million at your disposal. Tomorrow, utilizing spiritually developmental techniques, modern, ultra-modern spiritually developmental techniques, timeless techniques that actually escape time classifications just as you do spiritually. You may be able to have $1 million at your disposal tomorrow, or to own and possess the experiences that $1 million is supposed to grant you. It is all a mental pattern. Your physical existences are the results of emotional energies thrust out through self-images, through emotional patterns. What you bond with and identify with becomes real to you and emotionally charged, and you can act upon these images, and they will eventually manifest in your physical world. If your aspiration is to be a great psychic healer, what is holding you back? The perception that maybe there are too many and too much competition. There is so much illness in your world today. There is an insufficient supply of ready, able, and mature healers and magicians. A magician is an individual that has disciplined the imagination to awaken the doors of consciousness through the endocrine system. There's nothing demonic about this. Demonology is a human conceptualization of nature's forces, a personification of their own fears and desires projected outwardly, and so there are demons on the lower astral and etheric planes. Human creations, the misguided use and misconduct of the human imagination. It is so powerful, if it is misused, it will create results that you may not want in your life. Those areas of your personality that you are not willing to own and take responsibility for become projected out into the outside world in the form of enemies, in the form of lawsuits, malpractice suits, murder, rape, and other types of abuse. That does not mean these things would not happen on their own. It means that the likelihood of their occurring is greatly magnetized and intensified due to your own mental processes. Otherwise, they would simply flow through your life and be gotten over with. You would not be stuck dealing with these issues with your finances, emotional energies tied up in such things. The imagination. A child plays being different things. Male and female children have no preference and no choice as to play objects. These are all enculturation techniques. A child would not naturally go to play with the truck and the girl with the dolls. No. And boys would not necessarily always play with army soldiers, but they would be just as curious about Barbie. Spirituality is gender role deficient. That means, generally speaking, culturally speaking, spirit is larger than these identification patterns, and those who are more spiritual naturally will not over-emotionally identify with any particular sexual characteristic. If you are over-identified with your physical body, and you get your self-esteem and image from the appearance, form, and shape of this physical body exclusively, then you are headed for trouble. Of course, your physical body is always an outpicturing not only of your genetic code, but of the mental images you brought with you from previous existences. For the foundations of these previous physical forms that you have possessed are contained latently within the energy field, and you all have these. Whether or not you can conceive or accept for religious or other seemingly viable and scientific reasons that scientific is a reality will not change the nature of reality one iota. You will all live again. Now, it is very beneficial if your concepts about physical existence agree with the way things really are, because you then have more power in the world. But your emotional reality, to the average human incarnate, is more powerful, more significant, more pivotal, more impactful than any other reality around you. Your emotionality determines the level of pleasure and happiness in your physical existence. And these are construed, constructed, put together, or forged together by various self-images by the use of the imagination. The imagination is the filler that makes sense of the logic, the facts, systems in your lives and in your affairs. The imagination is so powerful, and that is why I mention it in every communication. Your thoughts are so powerful, yet you should not fear them. You should simply learn to think correctly. Now, basically, naturally speaking, there is no wrong way to think. But there are natural ways of thinking that are easily within reach for all of you that you can use to improve your life circumstances, and you have a choice to think, behave, and feel in one fashion, or think, behave, and feel in another fashion. Why limit you? There is a whole spectrum of potentials that you can choose from electively, selectively, and unbiasedly to benefit yourself. Many sources of information in your world, but the best source of information for you is information that you can validate through your own pragmatic experience. If your self-image is low and you apply for jobs, you will tend to get a job that pays less and has more conflicts enwrapped within it. If your self-esteem is high and you apply for positions, then you will tend to get higher paying positions that are more emotionally rewarding, because in every way your physical experience will reflect your sense of self-image, self-importance, self-valuation, and self-concept. Rather than trying to change the physical world around you to validate the higher essence within you, you simply contact the higher essence within you through the use of the imagination. You become the person in your mind that you wish to be. Care ye not whether ye have sufficient evidence to validate who you are. You do not need approval or respect from the external world, from your friends and family. Today you may not be eating breakfast or lunch or dinner with a movie star, but you are good enough. Not that you should idealize such things, but since your life is the product of mental ideations, idealizations anyway, why should you not drive a Mercedes? Or a new truck? Or a wagon, whichever you prefer. It is all in the way that you interpret such things. You point out to your friends there seems to be a deficiency between their perception and what they wish to be. Only those friends will tend to have better luck than you and get what they want because they are willing to make what they wish real in their personal reality where it belongs, and not give the psychic power to external others and authority figures to tell you how to define your mental reality. You must take back your power as an individual and as a living situation, as a manifestation of the infinite in the flesh. You are a phenomena that must be self-defined. You must create your own laws and your own rules, and to hell if they do not agree with everybody else's. You do not need to be brash in the application of these techniques, and you may feel intimidated by my supposedly harsh tone of voice. But I mean to drill a point home today in this discussion about the imagination. Becoming a powerful and successful person means that others will interpret your behavior as being flamboyant, which is unacceptable. Stepping on others' toes, or the perception of stepping on others' toes and not following the rules, is inevitable, and you are taught in your education, in school, in your elementary schools, when you are most vulnerable in your development, that if you do not follow the rules, you will not be successful and be an outcast from society. You fear being branded and labeled a queer, a homosexual, an artist, a drunk, an alcoholic, a cocaine addict, an unfaithful husband. 1,001 things let them label you. But do not identify with the labels. Do not fear. And you may say to Anttarr, you may say, how do I not fear? In your mind, visualize your adversaries and dissolve them repeatedly, perhaps while staring them blank in the eye. They need not know what you are doing. Take back your power and your life force and stop empowering those that would attempt to suppress you with their low sense of self-esteem. Have the guts to be graceful and to forgive them also for their own ignorance. And forgive yourself when you do not live up to your own concepts of what your conduct, behavior, and level of success should be. In that way, you are being very functional, pragmatic, and very successful as it is. You must set your own standards in your life, whether it is to live in the deserts and move out of the big city and escape from everybody, or to move from a small town to the big city so you can party and have a little bit of fun for a change. It does not matter. You have the moving power, the impetus, and the force to improve your life and your physical affairs and to be emotionally enriched by the willingness to be a free radical. Being a free radical does not mean you are going to damage the system. It is a loose structure to begin with, only a board that you can paint on. Only a context. The best context is when you become non-context dependent in your physical existence. And that means it does not matter who is around you or their emotional condition or their functional condition in terms of emotional capacities or their financial condition. You simply do what you are meant to do, and the support will come. Simply begin and take the first step, and then take, when appropriate, in a timely fashion, the next step. But simply begin. Do not wait for circumstances to be perfect, because they never will be. They never have been. Reality is the constant condition of change and flux and flow. And so in your imagination, you paint those things in your life that you wish to possess, you enjoy them or grow through the experience, and then let them go on to your next great level of accomplishment. He who dies with the most toys does not necessarily win. He who enjoys the most toys and has had the most varied life experiences and is a better person for it, dies the winner. In your mind, visualize a situation that is oppressive to you right now. Perhaps you may be one of those foolish enough to believe that another is oppressing you, or a gang that lives down the block, or the police department is watching you, or your ex is out to get you and rape you financially and slander your image. And so you are on the defensive and do not wish them well. These are all projections from your own mind. Since this is the case, visualize those that seek to oppress you by your own interpretation and say, I take my power back. And as you do, visualize that person melting before your very eyes, and suck the life force in through your nostrils, into your lungs, and own your power again. You will not hurt the person, and you will not become a psychic vampire, always depleting others of their life force. Though there are those in your world who have this capacity, I am afraid you will not fall victim to these practices, unless that is your intent. For all things are possible to those who are willing to believe in themselves. You do not need the approval of others or even the external world to be a powerful, magnificent, self-justified organism. It does not matter if you are sexually abused in youth. You cannot use that as an excuse not to be happy, successful, and fully realized now. You may have to go through some therapy, but understand, you are the person the power is derived from, and not your therapist. They are here to assist you, not to control you. Give us a moment. I am not a respecter of your social laws, rules, and regulations. I cannot be imprisoned or punished, for I have not a physical body. I cannot be squeezed into the mental concepts, your bylaws and criterion by which you interpret reality. Your minds imaginatively, due to the fact that your imaginations are rusty, cannot conceptualize my beingness in its entirety, and nor can you conceptualize yours through your pre-programmed prejudice perceptions and mental patterns. As you label others, so you label yourself. As you treat others, so you treat yourself. What you do to others, ultimately you do to yourself. That is essentially the law of karma, which is a self-payback system built into your genetic units so that you could not get out of control and destroy each other in an unmeaningful fashion. Give us a moment. You have the capacity to be infinitely attractive and desirable. You have the capacity to possess, or at least experience, the flow of unlimited wealth, love, approval, and social acceptance is at your command. But only if you are first willing to confront your own neuroses, your own mental fixations and beliefs in limitation and unworthiness, to confront your lack of self-respect and your lack of self-sacrosanct. You are sacred incarnations, infant gods. It has taken millions and millions of Earth years to build the physical forms that you possess. They possess the adaptive capabilities that your medical scientists cannot begin to comprehend due to their orthodox mental conditioning. They are only able to help you inasmuch as they have been able to help themselves, and many of them have not passed through the grades of psychological self-initiation and have not unleashed their own creative genius. Hence, you frequently put yourself in victimizing conditions. Perhaps the chemotherapy will do the job, and perhaps it will not. But this is all the result of the mental programs of all of the participants intersecting into your mental program. One thing is for sure, I make no promises, you do. For you rig every situation in your lives to have a particular type of outcome, and you must learn to spot your self-sabotage tendencies. Your mind and mental patterns affect your genetic potentials and functioning, and the ability to resist disease. You have certain psychological matrix patterns which support the foundation of your identity. They are usually just below your normal level of consciousness, but not much farther than that. You need not be a spiritual master or join a particular group looking for a soulmate unless you wish to find your potentials. It is not a matter of learning about who you are by going to some psychic, no matter how good. Would you listen anyway? Since you hear everything and experience everything through your mental patterns and screens, you would omit any factual information that could assist you. Rather, it is a matter of learning to help yourself. And as you learn to help yourself, helping your brother and sister along the way. Since the physical world and the psychological world that you live in is the result of your mental patterns and your emotional conditioning, you will want to do everything possible in your power to escape such limiting ideologies. Even the cells of your body behave the way you think they should, or the way that some ancestor felt that they should. You are not merely a product of genetic programming or sociological conditioning. You are not the basic elemental physical stuff that your body is composed of. It is only a tool, a learning mechanism, and that, frankly, is all, although an invaluable one. There is no force in your life that you cannot confront. God, the God force, through your self-image, never prescribes for you challenges that you cannot beat or odds with which you cannot win. It is a matter of learning to unify the various value systems within you so that you can reach a transcendent psychological condition and get beyond the limited self-images. This is what is meant by selflessness. You have many selves, not in terms of multiple personalities, though most of you do indeed possess multiple personalities. Rather, it is a matter of not becoming psychologically identified with any particular version of yourself, but playing the whole gamut and constantly creating and recreating yourself according to the laws and fundamentals of magic and spiritual transmutation. This is selflessness in action. In your mind, sit before a mirror and stare at your physical features. And in your mind, change those physical features and experiment much like a woman would with makeup, or perhaps an African male. The physical body is makeup. It is also a physical version of make-believe, just as your physical lives are. You have pretended being who you are for so long that you believe it, and you say this is me and this is not me. But the miraculous powers of the superconscious and the subconscious minds cannot be limited to just such limited conceptions. You must furnish yourself with new mental furniture and refurnish your apartment, or better yet, move out and build your own home. If you wish to be spiritually significant beings, or that is, to create the validation for your spiritual significance. Above all, learn to love and cherish your experience 100%. In your mind, begin to build alternate mental models of the type of lifestyle that you would wish to have. Rather than focusing on one person to be your lover and being perpetually frustrated, focus on the type of lover you would rather have and let the person be attracted to you in your life experience. The only exceptions to this are those involved in various tantric and other psychic disciplines that are virtually illegal on your continent today. It is illegal to be a powerful and spiritually fulfilled human being, because then there are no laws that will control you, and hence the need for religion. Now, religion also serves other vital functions. Nevertheless, you, as those on the path, have outgrown many of the basic tenets of many Taoist, Taoist, Buddhistic, Judaistic philosophies. You must be willing to try on new mental concepts and wear them for a while till you adjust to them. Initially, this practice will cause some discomfort, but this discomfort will soon pass. It is much like moving into a new home. If you are used to a mobile home, then a Beverly Hills mansion will not be comfortable. So at first you may even get lost finding the bathrooms. One of 12, perhaps. Yet such spacious environments are only psychological outpicturing of the spaciousness of any particular personality. The events, the episodes, and those people and circumstances that compose your life experience will change as you change internally. If you do not like the experiences in your life, it is not just a matter of functionally, efficiently handling them, dealing with the details and attending to that life situation. It is also equally, or even more so, a matter of changing your emotional relativeness to the situation. And that is taking back your own power and stop empowering your employers. I did not say degrade your employers. You empower yourself by blessing them to fulfill their maximum potential. And then you escape from the limited definitions and concepts with which they plug into when they try to make sense of you as spirit incarnate. Above all, do not worship idols, but try to attain godhood, or maximum self-realization. That is godhood. If you seek these things, then all other things will indeed be added unto you. The power of the imagination. Your life experience at every step and turn of the way, and every nook and cranny, is the result of the way that you think and pattern information via the instinctive powers of the imagination. If you do not like the imaginary life you are living now, change it. Change the program. After all, your physical existence is a result of genetic and spiritual racial programs. If you are not pleased, it means you are a powerful entity that is suppressed beneath eons of conditioning, and you must do your best to break out of this conditioning. Not necessarily in a radical fashion, my friends. Perhaps in a smoother, more graduated, sophisticated fashion would become you best. But any fashion that works for you will do. You do not necessarily have to make waves to get the recognition that you need in your life. Rather, give yourself the recognition, and you will attract those to you that will recognize those qualities that you are nourishing within your own identity complex. Now, I suggest a termination to this immediate communication. You may wish to watch the psychic come out of trance and watch the personality demarcations begin. Since I know that you, the viewer, will find this very fascinating, you are dealing with an authentic video psychic. I am not a Hollywood production. Though I will assist my friends in producing movies in Hollywood and bring some great directors in to assist you. Good day.
Podcast Network. Tune in to the mystic broadcast of oneness emanating from every point in